The managers think that their work in the teams is distributed evenly, and maybe if you look at the whole month, it is, but when you look at specific days, different people or different teams have way too much or way too little work.
So just recently I've encountered a question from a manager, tell me how many applications you defined as the ones which are used in our team. And when he looked at the list, he was quite surprised that there is not just 2 or 3 core systems, that there is a bunch of other websites and tools that are used during the process.
Just to let everyone know, the process intelligence tool will not make improvements for you. It will give you data that will help you make improvements, but it's not enough to implement it. It's not gonna improve the process by itself. Remember that. Konnichiwa. Welcome to the AI Automation Dojo, the show for anyone who's ever looked at a workflow and thought, this thing is cursed. Our guest today is a practitioner of task mining, and he is the closest thing the corporate world has to an exorcist. A corporate exorcist who walks into a company and says, I see dead processes. We'll be asking him, what are the rites and rituals of a successful task mining project? How do you convince leadership not to listen to the strange noises coming from the finance department saying, that's the way we've always done it? And how do you perform an exorcism on a system when the demon is a 25-step copy-paste workaround? Everyone is too scared to change. I'm your host, Andrzej Kinastowski, one of the founders of Office Samurai, the company that dares to ask, what if the rattling chains haunting your hallways aren't a ghost, but just your team chained to a terrible procedure? So, whether you're a manager who feels like you're fighting unseen forces, or an employee who feels like their job is possessed by the ghost of repetitive tasks past, you're in the right place. Now grab your holy water, or just some really, really strong coffee, and let's get to it. Our guest today is Michał Kozubski. I met Michał almost 2 decades ago. We've been working together in a finance team in a big BPO. We could probably say we've been working hard. We've probably been partying even harder. And then we went our separate ways, but I was really happy when 3 years ago, Michał reached out to me and said he's looking to changed his career path, and he was quite interested in what we have been doing at Office Samurai. And he joined us, and since that time, he has been doing a lot of different things at Office Samurai as an automation consultant and a business analyst. And one of those things is task mining or process mining, or however we're going to be calling it. Michał, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for having me here.
Tell us, why are you the one I'm talking to about productivity mining?
Well, I assume it's because during my career, I originated from the financial environment, working for outsourcing companies, financial companies, working within accounting. I get acknowledged to the corporate financial and not only financial processes. And right now, since 3 years, I'm investigating those processes even more, looking for improvements or automation opportunities, and using the newest technologies to help with that tasks.
And this experience that you have in working in processes, is this something that does help you in those investigations, or it doesn't make that much of a difference?
Actually, the background helps me to understand this translation from the business language to the automation and improvement language. It helps to understand what's being done, because even with the finest automations, there is still a little bit of analytical work to do.
We're talking about productivity mining today, specifically KYP AI, which is our software of choice. And you have been doing a lot of projects with KYP. What is it for you? Like, if you were to briefly say what is KYP and how you're using it?
I would gladly refer to your definition. So, according to the Kinastowski principle, it's a very cool tool, but at the same time, it's a very useful one. So, this usefulness, and I see it growing instantly for a few years, is something that helps to understand how the work is really being done within the corporate environments.
And this, getting this understanding, how does this help companies? Because every tool like this is an investment of your time, of your money. Why are companies interested in doing such analysis? How does this help them?
The companies right now are looking for smart solutions which give them effects straight away and are based on facts and on the real numbers, not on the assumption and procedures which could be outdated, or the data which is invented or made ad hoc, deriving people from their work to make up some numbers and prove that the time they are spending was spent effectively.
So I understand the tool allows us to see the real world and not what we perceive to be a real world when it comes to business processes.
Exactly. It will show us the exact environment we're working on. It will show us how the process is really performed, because we know from the experience working in a corporate environment that the only people who know how the process is really performed are the ones who are performing it.
What is it that you or the companies who are implementing this kind of tools that they find? What are the interesting things from your experience that can be found with this kind of analysis?
Since the KYP platform works on, I would say, a few layers, the first one is the application scope. So just recently, I've encountered a question from a manager: tell me how many applications you defined as the ones which are used in our team. And when he looked at the list, he was quite surprised that there is not just 2 or 3 core systems, that there is a bunch of other websites and tools that are used during the process.
So the first thing would be the applications. And it is, I mean, when you think about it, it's not that surprising. But at first, you may think that your people are working probably in SAP, maybe a ticketing system, maybe a workflow system of some kind, right? And then you go deeper and you actually find a lot of legacy systems, external websites and things like this, right? What other things? What are the other layers that you'd be looking into?
Just getting back to these applications, what is surprising, it's a lot of information that's also connected with the processes. So not only people are getting the information from various sources, so there is a lot of websites, as you said, informations there, the sources of information they are getting. There is also a lot of communication going on between people. So a lot of emailing flying all around the corporation, and a lot of meetings, which of course could be more or less productive.
Yeah, and most of them are hard to judge when it comes to how productive they are. So for the viewers, it's important to know that one of the things that you will know is how much time basically your people spend on telcos, on reading and writing emails, on chats. So this is information that is quite hard to get in other ways, right?
Right, but the second layer then, apart from the applications, is what's done within that applications. And I'm not talking about getting the logs of the core systems, but maybe more general data, but from the whole applications environment. So you can easily identify the specific steps you are performing without getting into the personal details or the exact things you are typing in, but at least you can identify what actions are performed within that application. So that adds another layer of the knowledge of how the process is being performed. Based on the identified actions within the applications, the platform gives you an easy view of how the process is really performed and how the workflow is being constructed and how it looks like in reality.
So how it actually looks like versus what we have in the procedure, or how we think it looks like.
With the platform capability of recording the actions of the whole team at once, we are able to distinguish not only the core process flow, but all its variances, and leave out, because we collect a lot of data, we can leave out all the accidents which happens quite often, but are caused by an urgent email or urgent information which causes the process to stop.
And I think this is quite important, is that sometimes when you look, and this is from my experience working as a lean practitioner, right? We would watch somebody performing the process, and you see that you are unable to watch them for a whole week, right? You just do a little bit of sampling, because otherwise that would require an insane amount of time. So you watch them and you see maybe a few cases, but you're never sure how representative those cases are to what they're doing day to day, right? And because those productivity mining tools, they allow us to record so many instances of a process, we can clearly see that this was an outlier, because, as you said, maybe somebody bothered us in the middle of the process and we started doing something else, right? But the majority of the process goes in a certain way, right? So I wanted to ask you about those differences that we can see in the data. So like, if I understand correctly, sometimes it is about different people in the team performing the process differently, even though they shouldn't, right? But sometimes it is also about the same process having a few different variants for, I don't know, a few different types of cases or special occasions, right?
Right, exactly. And then we could clearly identify those different flows, see how often they occur, and then focus on those which are most time-consuming. Maybe the employees which are performing the process a little bit differently found a better way to perform it, found some kind of a shortcut, or maybe the other way around. So maybe some of the employees are unable to perform the process as it was designed because they have to find out a workaround.
Yeah, so it may be that the shorter path is better, or maybe it's just omitting some things that we should be doing, but some of the people are not. And I, when doing improvement projects, I have often found both kinds of cases. So like sometimes we would have people who just knew how to do things more efficiently, right? And sometimes we would have a team that is overloaded with work, and sometimes they take shortcuts that maybe they shouldn't. So maybe they skip a part of the process where they check something, where they double check something because they find it to be a waste of time. And it may be, but maybe it is a vital part of the process. Are there any other angles of looking at the data or kinds of things that that we find looking at the measurements in those tools?
Yes, I think we just scratched the surface of the tool capabilities, because we are talking right now only about the operational management, which is within this operational management is much more, and there is more about processes and the technology involved in the processes. Let me just say about the workload, which we just talked within the team, but as well there could be a comparison of the workload of the processes performed and aggregated through the whole company or department. We had a case when one of the process was scattered through 2 or 3 teams, and simply aggregating it to one of them or two of them made the life easier for everyone, because the people were not distracted and had more time to focus on their tasks when the processes were evenly distributed.
Yeah, this is something that we saw even when we were working together. We had those days because we were pretty specialized in our team, meaning there were like 3 people booking invoices, and then there was one doing some O2C stuff, and then there was another that was doing some R2R, right? So because of the specialization, on different days, different people were overloaded and other people didn't have that much to do, right? And we experienced that working there. And this is something that happens a lot, right? People think, the managers think that their work in the teams is distributed evenly. And maybe if you look at the whole month, it is. But when you look at specific days, different people or different teams have way too much or way too little work. So this is something that, for me, this is one of the biggest ways to save money. Proper workload distribution really allows companies to save money and to finally give people kind of predictable workload that they know what's going to be happening to them the day after.
And you can have that data aggregated already, and at the exact time when it's happening, and you can compare them week to week for the almost infinite time, and see if the changes you tried to implement are really working.
Yeah, that is another thing that is, because measuring used to be extremely labor intensive, right? When I was doing continuous improvement projects, we had to put a lot of work and a lot of effort, and the teams had to put a lot of work and a lot of effort into measuring what they do, because it was a manual process, right? Once we have this automated with tools like this, then we can have an ongoing measurement, right? And as you said, if I tweak something, I can immediately see, after even a day or a week, I can see, did it work? Did it make things better? Or did it make things worse? So I can use it to basically steer operations, right, in the long run.
Yes, and without bothering your team, which is working hard to invent some numbers or select the processes they perform during the peak period, and adjust the time they spend on working hard to see what kind of processes they performed like 2 days ago, because they don't remember, because they had to do their job. Yeah,
that is true. And this is something that we will for sure come back to that later, because it kind of falls into change management, but it is way easier. It is a lot less of a burden for the team to use a specialized tool that measures them by itself than to actually put things in an Excel file or use a manual tool where they do have to input what they're doing. That's for sure. And also the quality of the measurement is way higher. Any other layers or levels of the measurement that we should be talking about?
Right, but because when we get this kind of spaghetti diagram of all the process flows with all its complicated variants, we have to think, okay, we know how the process really looks like. Maybe we can think of some kind of improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And this as well is being done with the help of could be done with the help of the KYP platform.
Okay, so before we get to that, just to let everyone know, the process intelligence tool will not make improvements for you. It will give you data that will help you make improvements, but it's not enough to implement it. It's not gonna improve the process by itself. Remember that, right? But so how can it help us? How can it help us make those improvements?
When we have aggregated a lot of data, real data with real numbers, and see what are the interactions between different various applications and process steps, the platform can analyze it and identify some kind of patterns. Based on that patterns, the platform can suggest us the probable solutions we can implement to improve the process. Will it be robotic process automation using Copilot? But even standardizing the process is as well the solution we cannot forget about.
So the platform gathers all the data, analyzes it, and it does make suggestions, right? So it actually gives us things that for sure we need to check whether because the platform doesn't understand the context of the process. It only sees the process. So we need to have people who will actually dig deeper, but it already gives us ideas on, for instance, you mentioned RPA. So it gives us some pointers. Hey, I see a process that looks like it could be automated, right?
Right. Unfortunately, it doesn't do all the work for us. There should be some kind of analytical work involved, but we can get those patterns identified. Or if we get any idea of what are the improvement methods, we can implement our own pattern recognition and teach the platform, okay, let's look for that way of doing the job because we can use some kind of improvement we know with this pattern.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's I've seen quite a few of those suggestions, and as always with tools like this, some of them make a lot of sense. Some of them, for some reason, do not, or maybe they make sense, but it's impossible to do it. But you already get a list of things to check that may make sense for you to work on. One of the things that that I was stunned when I first saw it, and it is still my favorite chart in KYP, is the chart where it shows Control-C, Control-V. So where do people copy data from and where do they paste the data to? And this is sometimes it's crazy stuff that we see, right? We saw this one process where people were actually copying and pasting data from the same system to the same system, just from one transaction to another transaction, which is like, you would think in the 21st century that we shouldn't have to do stuff like this, right? What are some pointers from the tool that you saw in your projects that were interesting, or maybe the most surprising for you?
Maybe not that surprising, but there's still, as you said, in the 21st century, there's an extensive use of the Excel and copy pasting, not only within the core system, but in and out of the Excel file.
Yeah.
So there is no data integration, and the working on data is performed a lot within various Excel files which fly around the company.
Yeah. I think people would be surprised if they saw how many companies they interact with actually stand on a lot of Excel sheets, right? That's something that is kind of a constant in a big corporation. And another thing that I presume it's a byproduct of the whole thing, but it can be really helpful for a lot of companies. I saw there is also an analysis of like the hardware and software that people are using and how well or how not well it's working, right?
Right. There are like two ways to identify those. The first one is just during the work. It's so-called the passive time, which could indicate the slow response time of the application.
So basically I'm sitting there looking at the spinning wheel and waiting for it to stop spinning.
Exactly, but that is not always the case. For example, sitting on a meeting and not clicking and writing notes means that the time is spent passively. But there's another way called technology pools. This is the overview of the hardware performance. So you can identify the times when your CPU, your network or your machine is slowing down, and compare it with what is actually happening within the process. So you can identify when in the process this burden is higher, and what application or what set of action has caused this.
So with this, you can actually go to your IT and show them based on data, my computer is too old, because we can clearly see that it slows down my performance, right? So, and this is something that I have also working for big international corporations for many, many years. I had those cases where I would open a ticket saying, hey, my computer is really, really slow. You need to do something, or give me a new one, or just fix this one. And they would say, no, it looks good from where we're sitting.
We
right?
run a few tests and it looks fine.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no way to communicate, because I know it's wrong, they know it's okay, and there's no data for us to actually, I mean, sometimes we would get to a point where I would record basically half of my day to show them how slow certain things are, right? With the tool like KYP, you can actually measure it, and then you can make informed decisions, because sometimes it is the hardware or the systems are too slow, but sometimes it's just a user's excuse for, they had to cook their lunch and yeah. So it's good to have the data to see what's real and what isn't. And when companies do implement tools like KYP, what are the usual reasons for them to get into such an endeavor? What are they hoping to achieve in the end?
This is a very good question, because a part of being a cool tool, the companies will actually look for the results.
Yeah.
And the reasons may be very, very different. The most obvious would be savings, but how these could be achieved? The savings could be not only measured in money, but as well in the people well-being and the people's performance. Let me say that there is a really tough task in, for example, outsourcing company to allocate the work performed and the processes performed to the specific customers. There are various tools in use, but most of them are quite manual, and the tasks are performed the same way, but for the different customer. So this was mainly in my times, it was mainly the manual job to click or record the action that I start working for that customer, then I finish my ticket and start work for another one. But, this is not really precise and causes a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of things that, even if you forget to record something, you will never go back and you'll never be quite sure when you started and when you finished.
And also the customers will challenge you, asking, hey, why is it so much this month? Are you sure this data is right? And when you log it manually, you're never sure if it's right or not, right?
Right. And on top of that, you have as well, sometimes you work on the customer's software, and you have some issues we talked previously about. Another thing is the automation, so our field. There are some customers which implement this tool to identify the automation opportunities and have the real data based on the real number of employees actually performing the work for a specific amount of time with all the variations. So this is the good start for building a business case.
Yeah, and this is something that allows us, and we've seen this in practice, it allows us to find automation opportunities even in the teams where the managers think everything that could have been automated has already been automated, right? We had this case once where one of our customers, they installed it, they started measuring one of the teams in Asia where they already did a lot of automations, and they actually found quite a big process. I think it was like at least a few FTEs that could be almost fully automated that nobody ever told them about. They never kind of, and I'm not saying they did this on purpose. It may be, I don't know, miscommunication or whatever, but actually it was quite a big automation and they did quite a lot of saving thanks to this, but they were unable to find this process in any other way.
One of the interesting ways to implement the KYP to the benefit of the employee is to actually give the employee the annual or monthly bonus based on the personal performance. Mm-hmm. So there is a standard threshold assigned by the company, and all the additional effort made by the employee is, a bonus, a tangible bonus mm-hmm. for the involvement in the.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that is done a lot in manufacturing, right? People get something on top of their monthly salary based on their performance. But in business processes, we do not measure performance in such detail, right? You would get performance review once a year, maybe once every 6 months, because we are only able to measure it on a higher level, right? Until we get a tool like this, and for simpler processes, then we can actually basically say how well somebody did this month or even this week, right?
Right. There were no good ways to identify that.
Yeah. That is one that kind of surprised me. I never thought, and I think even KYP didn't really consider this when they were building the tool, but somehow it does work and it does make sense. I had a discussion with one of our customers about another interesting approach, and that was actually for the company to measure their BPO. So basically they feel that their outsourcing partner isn't telling them the whole truth, and they are in discussions with them to have the BPO employees being measured with KYP to actually know what's happening in the process. I think it's kind of out there, meaning it is a bit heavy, I think, to do, but if you don't know what's happening, then maybe that is the best way to address it, right?
That's very interesting because I've heard something similar, but the other way around.
Oh.
So one of our customers is currently thinking on implementing KYP to the company affiliates, and they are on the way of transitioning the process to the business center. So to measure the processes which are being performed, and then having that data and having the real process flows, transfer them to the service center.
That would make a lot of people's lives easier, because you've been doing transactions, right? So you know how big of a mess it can be and how much work it is to actually document what they're doing and to make sure that we didn't miss anything and so on. So with this kind of measurement, we are basically 100% sure that we know 100% of the work that they're doing. And we have the measurements to know how much work it takes. So we get rid of a lot of discussions about, this takes 3 minutes. No, it takes 4 minutes. And this is something that happens every time a transaction is being done.
Yes, and you can run it and perform it on the whole team at once.
Yeah.
And not, have your walkthroughs like once or twice and then be left with the unsolved ends and some kind of exceptions which no one is able to tell you about how to handle.
Yeah, we've been there. We've been on the receiving end of this. So, yeah. Okay. So there's many ways to use tools like KYP, and there's many reasons to implement them. And we have talked extensively about what a company can gain from using a tool like this. So I wanted to kind of switch tracks now and talk about the challenges, because it cannot be that easy, right? And we're not living in the fairy tale. So what are the main challenges when it comes to introducing those tools into the company? Because I imagine there can be quite a few and coming from a few different directions.
Right. And as far as the process recognition in KYP is described by people, process, and technology, the same guides with the difficulties. And
Okay.
It's all about people, then processes, and then the technology.
Okay.
And actually in the same order. So the first thing, let's start with people. So the good communication and telling why are we trying to implement the platform, what we would like to achieve, and how it really works is key. Because that's the first thing when people think about using KYP platform. Mainly, a lot of them thinks, okay, we'll live in a Big Brother soon. Yeah. Everything will be recorded and we will be like on an electrical leash.
Yeah, and it's, I can understand that nobody likes being measured, right? So how do we work with that? How should a company be addressing this fear of people of being measured?
I think this is again, the difference between the world of manual labor and office work. Because in the factories, we have it like since years now. In office environment, it's more delicate, but still, I don't know anyone who goes to work and thinks, okay, I messed something up today and will lie and hide from my manager for the whole day. I think these are like very rare cases, and there are some ways already implemented, as we said, monthly or weekly or yearly reviews and so on. So there are ways there are a lot of KPI tables to be filled in by the employees. So there are some kind of measurements already introduced.
And it is about showing people, as you said, why we're doing this and what exactly we're going to be measuring, right? Because it's quite important for people, for instance, to know that we can and we will blacklist private stuff. So if somebody goes on their Gmail, the tool will be blind to that, right? So they need to know that if they go on Facebook, the tool will not be looking at what they are looking on the Facebook page, right?
What is more, even if you are using your so-called private applications, the tool will not recognize which one you use. So if you are like half an hour on Facebook and 30 minutes listening to Spotify or the other way around, it won't be any recognition there.
Yeah, but to show them, and I think this is really neat because there is this
individual dashboard.
Yes, exactly.
Right? That's the good thing that is there. So there is a possibility to show the employee what kind and which data is actually being collected. So he can always go to his own dashboard and see what was captured from what kind of actions were captured from his work, because we're not capturing the exact things he was typing in, but only the actions which are needed to perform the process and which are needed to meet the goals we already communicated. So whether is it seeing the application scope, looking for the improvements or the better efficiency.
Yeah, so they can see for themselves all the data that the tool is gathering on them, and they can clearly see, I have been to Facebook for 15 minutes and it's not there. It's just marked as a private time or however it's called, right?
And it's had a really good effect, actually, because I've seen it many times that first days of using this the KYP platform, some of the employees were so scared that they tend not to have any breaks at all because they feared they are being measured. But that cools off after a few days, and then the life is going back to normal, and it actually helps you to plan the day as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important when it comes to communicating to the employees is that you really need to tell them the truth about why you're doing it, right? You cannot tell people one thing and then do another, because that's going to be basically the end of your measurement. People will try to find ways to go around that or cheat the system, or people's creativity when it comes to cheating the system is endless. So just tell them what you're looking to achieve and then do exactly that, and it should be fine, right?
Yeah, at the very end, the KYP platform is just a tool, as maybe a multi-tool, maybe a really sophisticated one, but we can compare it to a hammer, which we can use to build something or to smash something at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that would be the main challenge with people. Processes. What would be the challenges when it comes to the processes?
We have to keep in mind that the process defined and recognized by the KYP platform consists of the steps which are defined within that. Even if it allows us to track a simple transactions within the process right now, we can keep in mind that the process is a set of steps. So if you construct a list of processes, so kind of process inventory, let's assume that the order in which the processes are, the process steps are performed, are the variations, not the separate processes. So there is a need to have a look at the inventory and define them correctly. Because I've seen a lot of misunderstanding when trying to set up the platform, when sometimes the processes were too general, or the other way around, each of the process variant was defined as a separate
process. Okay, so I understand what you're saying is it's not a magical tool that you can just turn on and then it's gonna tell you the truth. You need to put work into setting the processes up so that the tool can properly understand what people are doing, and based on that give you the insights.
Yeah, and this is why the analytical work is involved. It's not like the magical wand that you say, okay, do the job and just wait for the results. But as well, you have to be careful about that and keep in mind that there is an analytical work to be performed.
Sure. So and it's kind of on both sides of the thing. So when you implement it, you need analytical work to set it up properly, so the measurements make sense in the context of the processes that the people are performing. And then once you have the measurements, you need to put analytical work into understanding the results and checking those results, like doing a sanity check on them, because the tool doesn't always understand what's going on. It sees the data and it gives you insights, but it doesn't really understand what the context of the whole thing is.
Right. Even if you can slice and dice the data, you can play around with it, you can use your own dashboards and fit them into your needs. You need to know what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. And then we have technology. What are the challenges there?
As the technology advances really fast, we are still facing some kinds of issues when dealing with it. Let me say that until now, there is no good way of solving the remote connection with the customer systems, for example. It's working not perfectly.
Meaning if somebody logs into a Citrix or a virtual machine? Or?
Right, and exactly as within the RPA, there are ways to cope with that, but you have to have in mind that this is something you have to pay additional attention to.
The thing that kind of connects to the technology is information technology security, right? ITsec teams. I imagine that when you go to them and you tell them, hey, so we're gonna install this little agent on everybody's computer, and it's going to be gathering a lot of data about what they're doing. I can imagine the first impression is not that enthusiastic, right? So how do we work with that? How do we convince them to allow us to do this and make sure that they feel that everything is in order and that the data that the tool is gathering is safe?
There are various ways to secure the data, and not only within the technology itself, connecting to the safe protocols, but we can encounter some kind of requests from specific requests from our customers. For example, concerning the privacy and how do you call it? Private data, sensitive data protection. So there are various ways of data protection, data masking, and making sure that nothing which is absolutely needed is being gathered.
Okay, so we can, because on one hand it is about, we can set all of it up on-prem, so it's not going to the cloud. This usually makes the discussion a little bit easier, right? But on the other hand, as you said, we can mask certain things, we can anonymize the data, right? So, for instance, we know some user did something, but we don't know which user it is. We can aggregate the data, so then you can see the data on the level of the team, but not particular people. And this often kind of makes that discussion easier, right? Makes it easier for people to accept.
Yes, and as a side note, it enables using the KYP platform even in the payroll department. So that didn't sound like the really easy one to cope with, because there is a lot of personal data, and not only the employee data, but the team data, but the data of the other employees. Or even in some kind of outsourcing companies, the employee data, but the employees of your customer. But then again, there are some choices to be made. But when you have specified exactly the data you need, you can go with data masking even on the level of the user's desktop, because there's another issue we faced. So no data, so sending the data to the server is still considered as data processing.
Right. Okay. So we need to mask certain things first, and only then we can send it.
Right.
Okay.
You just have to know what data are you looking for, and if there is some kind of identifier of the data, or make some hard choices, like, for example, when you know that the document is being opened, leave it on the document type level, not on the document title.
Do not gather the details about the document. This is something that there's a lot of different tweaks that can be done within the tool to help you deal with that. But we do have to remember that this is a trade-off, right? We lose some of the data because we don't want to gather it for security, data privacy reasons, but this means that we won't have this data in the analysis. We will not be able to use it. So it's kind of pros and cons.
Right. So therefore, the key is here to define what do we want to achieve with the tool.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And we touched upon that, but you can have it deployed in your own infrastructure, and you can use it as a cloud solution. Your experience, which one of those are customers using most?
To my surprise, even those who were leaning to the on-prem deployment first tend to decide to deploy it in the cloud. Okay, that happens a lot. With RPA, it happens a lot too. Or sometimes companies start on-prem, but then they get tired of paying for the infrastructure and dealing with the updates, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that makes sense.
And there are some additional features coming in. So when using the on the cloud deployment, you can get access, for example, to one of the newest features in KYP, so this KYP concierge.
Okay.
I don't know if you have heard about it, but you can have your personal assistant, and if you have access to the dashboards, you can get the assistant to translate it from the technical data to the management, or even create a business case from the data you filtered your dashboards on.
Okay, that should make a lot of people's lives easier, especially the ones that are not that deep into data analysis or don't have the time to dig really deep into the data, right?
Right. What is more, this concierge is available as well on this personal dashboards.
Oh, so I can ask it, how did I do yesterday compared to the day before, right?
Yeah, get some hints, some fun facts, and yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. So I can actually get constant feedback from a machine, so I can ask it anything, and I don't have to be shy about it.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm looking forward to actually checking the concierge. I know it exists. I didn't play with it. It sounds like a really good use of using generative AI to actually do something useful, because we've been talking about Gen AI a lot, and we've been playing with Gen AI a lot, but a lot of times companies put Gen AI into their products just because everybody's doing it. But in this case, it actually does make sense. And another thing, when it comes to new features that I am quite excited about is that, and that one of the founders of the company wrote about it on LinkedIn some time ago, is that they plan to have a feature, or they're building a feature, or maybe it's already there, where based on the data and analysis of the process, you can generate prompts for an AI agent that will be performing this process. I'm on the fence. I don't know if it will really work, but it sounds like another cool idea that could potentially save us some of the trouble. Okay, Michał, thank you for sharing your experience with us. It is quite exciting what's going on when it comes to productivity mining right now. I am really observing this really closely, because it is something that I used to do manually in doing my projects. It wasn't crazy bad, but if I had tools like this at the time, I could have done so much more. So I'm really looking closely to how those technologies develop, and they seem to be the traction on those technologies. The level of adoption of those technologies is really skyrocketing right now. So this is something that I'm sure we will all be talking about in the future. So thanks again, and maybe in some time we can meet again and see what new and interesting things KYP gave us to play with.
Sure, it'll be a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's our time. The spirits have been quieted, the inefficiencies have been exposed, and we have a few more tools to fight the forces of corporate darkness. We made this episode in cooperation with KYP AI, our first choice for productivity mining. Domo arigato to all you listeners for tuning in. We know your time is a valuable asset, constantly under attack from the demons of distraction, so thank you for sharing some of it with us. A massive thank you to our guest exorcist, Michał Kozubski, for cleansing our minds with his wisdom, and to the irreplaceable Anna Tsubal, our producer, for keeping the chaos and the paranormal activity confined to the recording booth. This was recorded at Vodzubit Studio, our sanctuary from all the madness. If this episode lifted your spirits, subscribe, share, and leave us a 5-star review to ward off bad processes. Got questions, feedback, a confession about your own company's demons? Drop us a line. We love hearing your tales from the crypt. Until next time, don't let evil processes drag you to corporate hell. Matane.